Keith, I think we should just carry on our conversation that we were just having, because we were just having a great chat and we were like, we should probably press record now. So
Yeah.
I do the introduction before this anyway. Keith, you've been on before as well, so no need for your introductions. But before we get into the Q&As, because I want this to be a regular thing, because I think that from having you on before, you've got obviously a huge knowledge, especially with what you do, the education side of it, with a life of education. But I think between us, we have some good experiences. We can talk about things quite critically as well. Like, we won't just slam things. We'll always kind of weigh up other options. But before we get into the questions that we were sent when we did the post, we were just talking about lockdown and our lessons that we've learned, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because when we spoke, I was in Dublin last. I got stuck, I got locked out of the border an hour and a half after the Gatwick airport, the border closed for the UAE rather. I was stuck in Gatwick airport. So I spent 4 months at home in Dublin with my parents, and obviously loads of time to reflect, like everybody had, and like there's the general lessons you learn, like be grateful, gratitude, appreciate what you have, you got your health. There's all that, and that's super important. I wouldn't knock that for a second. But I was saying to the guys since I got back, like, one of the lessons that I learned most is it's almost like the meaning of life. And I know that sounds quite airy-fairy, but from the perspective of like the meaning of life is love, right? And what I mean by that is, I don't mean let's all get daisy chains, tie them around our forehead, tear our clothes up and run around the field half naked. Like, I'm not talking about hippie love. I'm talking about assured love. Like, finding yourself in a situation where you're pretty helpless, you need support, but there's people who have your back. Like, I knew my parents had my back, my family had my back from that perspective. My business, I have 2 businesses over here. I have the physical training company and I have a life of education. And I know 100% that each of my business partners are in the trenches doing everything they can in Dubai, while I'm in the trenches doing everything I can in Ireland. And it's just that feeling of like, everybody's struggling, but I know that I'll peak when someone else has a weak moment and I'll rally them up. And as PTs, that's what we do, isn't it? Like, we sort of just G people up, you motivate people, and you get people to push through these extra 30 seconds of their set. So you get to know when people are sort of, you know what the right words to say are, but it's about the timing of it. When you pick that out, you pick your mate, I know this guy so well, or I know her so well, that's a little bit slumpy. What does that mean? You have a chat, you pick them up, and they do the same for you. You've got 10 minutes, quick conversation or quick WhatsApp, and you just know, I'm over here, I'm stressing about A, B, and C. You're looking after A, B, and C over there. What do we need to do? Right, me and you, we're in this together. Let's go for it. Let's come out this the other side, and let's truck on. I think people band that around a little bit under the bracket of like community. It's about having a community, and it's about being part of a community. And that's definitely important as well. But if you can put your hand on 4, 5, 6 people in very different aspects of your world that have your back, man, that's survival. That is the meaning of a happy life, I believe.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. One of the, I guess, just one lesson from lockdown that I kind of found that I've taken on is just, we talked about this before about how the fitness industry adapted, and, a lot of online training, a lot of content, trying to motivate people to work out from home. With a lot of people that I work with, I saw the initial exercise and people's kind of training go up because they had the time, right? They didn't have the equipment or get to a gym, but they had the time, and that was a massive thing. One of the things I found was that just having a commitment to get to something and tie yourself in, like going to a 30-minute online class, can mean a world of difference compared to training by yourself. And this isn't me saying like everybody needs to go to a group fitness facility or, go and hire a personal trainer. But when you have that commitment, that pre-commitment to go and do something, I always joke about when people come into like a CrossFit class for the first time who have been training in a gym by themselves for so long. I'm like, listen, all you've got to do is turn up. If you turn up, like, you're not walking out of the class. Whereas when you go to the gym by yourself, and I do it now still, if I train by myself, 25 minutes in, I'm like, man, I've got a bit of work that I need to do, or, I need to get myself home. You start convincing yourself, and you'll be lucky if you reach the end of the workout that you've kind of specified, whereas you don't have that in a class. And I found that with like the online classes, I would hold just a 30-minute live class, and they would be really popular. there was nothing stopping like the members I had doing that class by themselves. They would have access to it. They would know what they do. But I'm not convinced that they were doing it versus the people that were. So I think for me, it was just, you know, motivation is going to come in peaks and troughs. You're not always going to be motivated. So set up your lifestyle so you have these commitments to kind of get to.
Yeah, that's actually very important, especially when there is a scenario where you have, I know everybody was working from home, but it felt like you were just at home forever. But if you sort of knew that, like, right, as best I can, I'm going to do 10 minutes of meditation in the morning. So I'm going to get up, going to have my coffee. I don't have that commute to or from work. So I've got an extra like 40 minutes, half an hour, and 1 hour, whatever it is. But at a certain time, say instead of 3 p.m. when I'm going to be in that office or that desk or that boardroom meeting, listening to the chat, then I'm going to do my 30 minutes. So that breaks your day up, doesn't it? So it's like, right, well, if I've got 10 things I need to do, let me do them right now. Get after that 30 minutes, and then that breaks your day up. And then after you do your little recovery, you have your shower, and then you finish up with your phone calls. But I think exercise through lockdown I think it will have given people a very true intrinsic feeling of the benefits of what exercise can do, because you didn't need to go to a gym. You didn't need your community around you. You didn't need like the people opposite you to tell you, or you didn't need your coach to count 4 more reps or 2 more reps or 3, 2, 1, right, rest is over, let's go. What you needed to do is you needed to get off your chair, go over there, change your clothes into your sweaty clothes, or even just get into your underwear. No one's watching. But that was all it took. But then once you did that, and you finished, you cannot hide from that intrinsic positive endorphins. And I think I spoke to a lot of people, and me, I'll speak for myself. I never thought I would be a home workout person, ever, ever, ever. To the point where I used to have a philosophy that I spoke before lockdown to somebody about. Listen, don't do any home stuff. Home is where you relax. Home is your nest. It's your couch. It's your kitchen. It's your love, your family, your bed. Park all that exercise and heart rate out of the comfort zone and sweaty, and leave that for the park, the gym, the yoga, whatever, the Pilates studio. And you're home just relaxing. And now I'm just like, okay, I lay the carpets out in my place back in Dublin, and I'm doing burpees, I'm doing lunges, I'm doing dips for days. And I was like, you know what? I hope other people are doing this. I hope people who never thought of exercising at home are doing some stuff, because you cannot argue that if you're having a stinker of a day, weekend's going wrong, your afternoon is going wrong, or your kids are just going down for half an hour, maybe got a young child, let me just do something quick on the floor. Not because I want to lose 20 kilos by the end of the month, but just because I need to feel better. I need the next part of my day to go much better. So I'm going to flip my brain chemistry. Worked in lockdown, it's going to work again. So I hope so many people like take that on and just go, do you know what? I'm actually the type of person who's able to work out at home. So here I go. Yeah. We'll see though if it happens.
Yeah, well, time will be the tell of that. But yeah, let's get into these questions then. I know we both got some. I've got them all here. So just in kind of the order that we got them, I'll go between the two. I think what I liked about when we spoke about doing this is that we were just going to freestyle, just very natural. I know people might often think about Q&As and think, well, I can just Google that. But I think what you get with us two is that, like I said, we can give that full transparency.
We'll either be right or wrong, but we'll go for it.
Give our experiences. But the first question was perfect. And this was from Nazreen, who I know very well. And she straight away, I think she knew you were coming on as well. And she said, when do we work through pain? Like, when is it okay to work through pain, or is it okay to work through pain? And she put, everything hurts at 45.
That's interesting. So I had a very similar question asking about when you have pain, should you train through it or not? I think you need to think about where the pain, like what caused the pain, in the sense that there's a big difference between the acute injury, where there's tissue damage and there's inflammation, and there is a protective mechanism because you're at a deficit. And then there's this chronic pain or this ongoing pain where you can't quite put your finger on why you didn't fall over, you didn't twist your ankle, you didn't get a kick in the knee or bang into the corner of a table. But why is my knee sore? If I'm sitting at a desk all day, why does my back at 3 p.m. hurt when at 10 a.m. it didn't hurt? So to clear the first one off the list, if you know you've just hurt yourself in the last week, 2 weeks, then it's in the kind of acute phase. If you know there's a moment, boom, pain, that's it, then that's the time to not really train through. You can. There's a thing with pain where you can almost flirt with it at the beginning to see, if I do this and this, does it hurt? Okay, it hurts. Right. Let me back off the intensity a little bit, or let me just change the position. Does it hurt? No, I can achieve that movement a different way. Okay, well, can we work with that? Yes, no, and then you kind of you like I said, the best way to do it is just kind of to flirt with it is the best way to explain it. If it gets better, it gets better. If it doesn't, then you got to pack it in. Don't irritate that, especially if you've had a recent one, because you possibly have tissue damage. And I use that word possibly very intentionally, because this pain doesn't equal severity of pain doesn't equal severity of tissue damage, whether it's muscle, knee, bone, joint, whatever. It's there. So then if you have that like niggly ongoing disruptive ache, then you can look at, right, well, if there's any strategy that we can implement to reduce that pain, to free up the movement, to then train, that should be the strategy. So if it's a stretch, if it's a longer warm up, if it's a trigger point release technique thing, what else could you use? If it's some sort of sports massage works, maybe sometimes even kinesiology tape creates enough neural activity that can override pain and you can free up movement patterns. So whatever strategy you've defined to reduce the pain, then you train through it. So in other words, you don't like, okay, that's painful, I'm going to do another 50 reps. That's painful. How do I back up? How do I push that pain aside and then carry on? So a standard one would be like a knee pain or a back pain. You're in the middle of a set. It wasn't sore at the start of the set, and now it's starting to get painful, and you got 2 more sets to go. Is there a stretch in the middle of your sets you can do? Is there a release technique that you can do for your lower back or for your knee? Or can you lighten the load, achieve that range, say through the lunge or through the squat that doesn't hurt, and then slowly build the weight back up and buffer that pain? The time I would say push through the pain and keep going is when it's game day, is when it's all on the line. Then you go. And I'm not saying this as a doctor. I'm not saying this as medical advice. I'm saying this as a person who, yeah. Well, it's not medical advice. It's my advice. I'm not a medic. So if you are been training for a marathon or a 10K and you put your heart and soul into the effort, and it's going to be over in 1 to 2 or 3 hours, and your knee starts to hurt, it's not quitting time. It's time to go. It's time to push. Now, if it is causing you excruciating pain every step of the way, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and you can't physically bear it, and your gait is going off and you're limping, and you're like, okay, maybe then you need to sit on the curb and wait for the ambulance. Or if you're playing a sport and it's the Champions League final and you've dislocated your kneecap, all right, that's the end of your day. But if you fall and you get a bang on the shoulder and you got a dead arm or a dead leg, you pick up and you absolutely go, because the reward of that triumph, your body will heal. There's a phrase I used to say to myself playing rugby at a really high level when I was younger. I never knew where it came from. I heard it on an audio motivation thing. And when I saw the movie, I couldn't believe it. But the phrase was, pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever. Right? And that, for me, I just repeated that mantra over and over in my head. And then I realized a long time later, I was watching some random movie about these baseball players or football players that went on strike, and these random guys came in. It's called The Replacements. Okay. It's a Keanu Reeves line in the middle of a pitch. I was like, no, that's the best line ever. It's Keanu Reeves. But that's it. Look, you gotta push through when you know that it's the reward far outweighs the return. A few extra reps and sets in the gym is not that time.
I actually know what film that is. I think it's called Hardball or something like that. I know what it is. I think you've summed that up there. So that was a great question. One of the questions that you got, which I thought was really interesting, it's not going to take us long to answer, but why always 8, 10, 12 reps, not 7 or 13?
Yeah, that's something that people just, I suppose, is overlooked, isn't it? But if it's all about energy systems, and you might have a different perspective on this, but it's all about the time that it takes to do the work. And it's so, I have no idea where it came from, and it's a very good, I don't know, there might be an answer, but it's like, if you're trying to gain muscle mass, you need to work for X amount of time, whether it's 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 50 seconds, in order to put enough stress through that tissue to cause the correct say, physiological breakdown to then create the correct response. And that just so happens to be the 8 to 12 rep range. But if you were to think about it in a different way, that it's more like, how much work can you do in a time period? So it could be 2 reps, and they could be 20 seconds, tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that. So you do 2 reps, but it takes you 10 seconds to go down, 10 seconds to go up, 10 seconds to go down, 10 seconds to go up. And that's, what is that, 20, 40 seconds. Then it's a set of 2 reps. But if it's, and then to take, like, why is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reps for strength? Well, that's the amount of work that you want to do. So you've got to jack the weight up, and we need to get this neural system response. I don't know if I'm answering this the right way. What would you say?
I think you're roundabout right. I think we've mentioned it before, like in previous podcasts that I've done. Like, for those that don't know, there is specific rep ranges for what you're trying to train towards. Like you mentioned, strength, then like 1 to 5 reps. If you're looking for more like muscle mass or hypertrophy, you're looking at more like, 12 to 15, even 20 repetitions, kind of like endurance, that type of stuff as well. I'm sure if you looked and researched it hard enough, it would go down to something similar to what you said about the time under tension to get the repetitions out. But I just think it's just giving guidelines on specific strength. And those numbers have come out from guidelines. If you were going to go on to like bodybuilding.com and look at, a good bodybuilding program to build my chest, it's just giving you guides. And you'll find that a lot of them will say like 8 to 12 reps. And then that's down to you to get that like RPE, or rate of perceived exertion. If you can barely get to 8 reps, then it's too heavy. If you can get to 12 reps quite easily, it's too light, and it's just finding that rep range in between. I think what is interesting about all of that is that you look at something like CrossFit came in to obviously 10, 12 years ago, and they started to throw out random numbers. And I don't know whether it was because anything scientific behind it, but their whole thing is like constantly varied. And I know if you go into a CrossFit gym, there'll be like 13 rounds for time, or there'll be like, 5 rounds of 13 reps. And, whenever like a hero workout comes out, there's random rep ranges. So, obviously CrossFit is looking at power output, work capacity, as opposed to stimulating X amount of muscle fibers, that type of stuff. So to answer it honestly, I don't think there is anything specific about it. I think you kind of nailed it on the head in terms of like time under tension to get that stimulus that they're looking for.
Yeah, I wonder, like with CrossFit, it's all sort of metabolic, isn't it? Like it's that middle of the road where they're trying to get everything. They are trying to keep it heavy enough that it breaks down muscle, but they're also trying to keep it fast, so that adds that competition element. So at some point you have to sacrifice your maximal reps, your maximal weight for your rep, because you can't do 21 deadlifts with the max weight. So you're not in that strength category, even though you are getting stronger. So it's not a bad thing that because they do what they say, constantly varied, fittest across all disciplines. So like, can't argue with that, because if we want to get real strong, we're going to have no endurance. If we want to get super endurance, if we want to be able to do 1 million deadlifts, we're going to have a broomstick, because it's just, that's the way it is. But if you're trying to get all of it, they've actually probably got the right mix of reps, because that's what their goal is. They're not sending the best person to the Olympics at the clean and jerk. And they're not going to the world's strongest man. They're doing their thing.
A great way of just explaining, CrossFit to someone that doesn't know is that, you're trying to train someone that they could go and do run a marathon one week, and then and finish in a fairly good time, and then the next week they could go and enter a strongman competition and finish fairly high up in that as well. And it's just finding that balance between the two. They're not an extreme in either.
Yeah, well, they are better than average at everything they do.
I would say so. Okay. One of the questions I got was about, now this was from someone who is running there. I know, just to give some context to it, they're fairly new to running, maybe last 6 months. They built up from doing 2 or 3K. I think they're knocking out 15, 20K every couple of weeks now in terms of, just one session. So they've really got their question was based around, why is their heart rate monitor? I think it was Strava specifically. I don't think it's an actual heart rate monitor that they use. Telling them that they are working predominantly anaerobically. So that's just to give some, again, context to that, like the heart rate percentages, they were saying that they spend most of their time in like 18 to 90% of their max heart rate. Now, before I pass it on to you, the first thing, I actually messaged them back and said, hey, I want you to actually just go and make sure that all of your data is correct, because if you're running 10, 15K and your heart rate is 80 to 90%, your heart rate is wrong. Like there's something not mathematically correct there. Maybe because you've dropped a lot of weight recently that you need to adjust your weight so it adjusts your max heart rate. Maybe your age is set up wrong, something like that. But let's think about, so there's kind of like 3 elements that we might think about in terms of energy pathways, energy systems. There's like aerobic, and just to put a number on that, that's like working between like 50% and 70%. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I haven't done this for a long time. 50 to 70%, and you're recruiting fat as the main source of energy, because with oxygen there, your body's able to break down fat, use it as an energy source. Between kind of 70 and 80%, you start to go more anaerobic, which is like your lactic acid system, where you start to utilize carbohydrates as more of an energy source, but there is still the availability for fat as well. And then when you get to like high 85, 90%, which is like, you're not spending a huge amount of time there. That's when you're using that anaerobic, like alactic, where you're just using carbohydrates for that. Your body's not able to get oxygen in to break down fat to use it as energy. And that's kind of like lasting, like 2 or 3 minutes maximum?
Yeah. That what you said there at the end is very important. You cannot, if there was a way to measure the actual like fuel burning mechanism, you wouldn't last much longer than, I would even say 2 or 3 minutes is generous, in the anaerobic, readily available glycogen burning fuel source. So what it is essentially is, if you looked at it from, you stood still and you're going to jump quickly down on the ground and go for as many mountain climbers as you can. So just like knees to elbow, just running, whatever. You're just going to do something super explosive as quick as you can. What you're utilizing there is the readily available glycogen. So basically the glycogen that is stored in the muscle fiber. It's like, this is the muscle that does the work, and right next to it is the storage for the energy that's going to do the work. So that you hammer that, you do your exercise, you contract the muscle, you burn through it. If it's a sprint, whatever it is, that glycogen store depletes. And the more fit you are, the longer you're going to get. Like the bigger cross-section muscles, the longer you're going to get. So that is typically known as the anaerobic state, is when you are using the readily available glycogen as your energy fuel. Now, what that will appear for a heart rate, effectively, it's kind of weird to get your head around this, but you could sprint. You could be from your resting heart rate, 3, 2, 1, monster in the room, and you sprint up a hill, and then you run across a bridge and you're safe. And that's about 50 meters. You stop. Your heart rate hasn't even budged. Your breathing's not increased anything. Like that split second that you stop, everything is what it was, because you were using that readily available energy that was on the muscle fiber. Now, the next thing that happens in reality is your body realizes that is wasted, and then it begins to replenish that, because it needs that replenished. So that's where your heart rate goes up and your breathing goes up, because you've got to get the air in from you got to get oxygen out of the air to the muscle. So that's where your heart rate begins to go up. So from there, then, if you were to keep sprinting away from that monster, your sprint will turn into a run, will turn into a jog. And if you're really unconditioned, it'll turn into a walk. But what's actually happening is you are running out of the readily available energy system, energy fuel, and you're beginning to recruit more oxygen. Okay, and if your ability to recruit oxygen is high level, like as in your lungs have alveoli in them, really conditioned, then your breathing's not going to go up that much, your heart rate's not going to go up that much, because you're getting loads of O2 out of the air into the bloodstream. So that's when you are, let's say you're not conditioned. So the air is going in, it's not getting oxygen into the bloodstream, so your heart rate goes up. Now, the less fit you are, the more your heart and oxygen has to fuel. And fat will be the underlying fuel there too, but oxygen is the main one. Oxygen is like, that's why the speed slows down, breathing goes up, but the speed in the room or the speed of the thing slows down, because you need to get the airways open. So no matter how hard you try and go, you just haven't got it in you, because the readily available glycogen is not being replenished. So the longer you go for, so if you're going for 15 or 20K when you're unfit, if your heart and lungs are not super capable of getting oxygen out of the air into the bloodstream, they have to work harder. So they've got to shift more blood out of the way. They have to transport more oxygen per heartbeat in the minute. I don't know if I'm going to explain this the right way. So that's one thing that's going to happen. That's one requirement for your heart rate to beat fast, is to simply get oxygen and energy to the muscles that are doing the run. Now, in Dubai, if this person is running outdoors, you have this other effect of the heat. So as we move and exercise, we create heat. And when you're running in this heat, it's very difficult to cool down. So your heart has to, so you should normally be able to only increase your heart rate to deliver oxygen from the blood to the working muscles. But in this heat, we also need to start shipping blood around our periphery to cool down. We need to get, so the heart is pumping for two effective purposes. The muscles doing the work, and we're trying to get blood to the area, to the surface, to cool down, to then get it back. So you can have a super high heart rate and be not performing very well in the heat, because you're trying to stay cool. So your heart rate will be in the two lines at the top that says anaerobic threshold. But you're in the real world, if we looked at the person running, their pace is slow. They've been running for half hour, 45 minutes. They're absolutely not burning glycogen. They're burning oxygen, they're burning fat. Their heart rate is in that super high zone. So what's happening is they're actually working too hard, because their heart is in that high zone, not because their muscles are beasting the job, because they're overheating. They're not fit enough to get oxygen out of the air. So that's where you need to pay very close attention to your heart rate. And actually, if it means you have to, even though you want to go for a 10K run, because your event is in, what are we now? Your event is in October. You might have to do a walk, run, and keep your heart rate in that zone. Because if you focus on the heart alone, the heart is a muscle doing work. So now this is not pure true, but if it's working at a certain heart rate per minute to deliver oxygen to the cells or to cool down the core temperature, it's still working. It's still doing the reps. So that's how we train it. So that's how you stay in that heart rate zone. Even if your movement on the road looks like a walk, if your heart rate is at that range, it's in that, I'm talking about that 50 to 60 range that you mentioned. So if you're right up at that 60% or 65%, and it looks like it's at about 140 or 150, and you're only walking, then walk, because your heart rate is still doing the reps. So that is going to get real good and proficient at beating 150 beats a minute, if that's the number I said, the same amount of beats. So that when you move to a different climate and your temperature kind of normalizes a bit and you're running, you still got a fit enough heart to deliver that much blood around the body. The end purpose is different. The end purpose now is just to deliver oxygen to the cell. But the heart is a mechanical pump. It just pumps fluid. It just pumps fluid based on the instructions that it's been required to do. So now if it's only been required and requested by your nervous system to pump blood to the working muscles, it's going to be very, very efficient at it because you've trained in the right heart rate zone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think you went into quite a lot of detail there, which is great. And obviously, the only thing that I was going to tie in is like, and you mentioned it kind of at the end there in terms of like working at that lower energy zone. And, you know, endurance athletes always talk about, you always see it like working in zone 2. And zone 2 is essentially like that aerobic, what I spoke about, you know, 50, 60, 65%. I think if you're looking at longer distance running and you're perhaps, everybody's thinking about how fast can I run, you know, 10K, for example, you're looking to find a pace that you can kind of sustain your heart rate in that aerobic zone, because that's where you're going to be most efficient. And then you almost have that energy. Once you hit that last 2K, 1K, whatever it is that you decide to go, you've got that energy stored up, you know, through the glycogen to be able to hit that anaerobic, anaerobic part that you can really kind of push on, and you have the energy to finish off that race strong. So it's actually, using heart rates is great for running. I mean, people shouldn't necessarily get obsessed with it when they first start out, because at the end of the day, just run what feels comfortable. But if you do reach a level where you are looking to just get that extra 1% in your run, utilizing your energy. And that's something that I did when I did my rowing challenge, which was over 10 days. And, you know, my heart rate did not go over 145 for the whole time that I was doing it. Because if I did, I would risk burning out and not being as efficient and perhaps not finishing that challenge. So there's times to look at heart rate and there's times to just go on, do you know what, let's just see how I feel today. But I'm glad that you brought up the heat as well, like in Dubai, because that makes a huge difference. And maybe people are thinking, yeah, I know it's hot, but that's not going to affect my running. But it really does. Like, it can
really does.
5 or 6 minutes off.
It also affects your brain, because your brain. Here's the thing to do, right? Write out 4 maths questions on your hand or on whatever, right? Something slightly abnormal that you need to use your thinking brain to figure out, right? You'll first one, when you start your run, easy. By the time you get to the end, your brain can't compute this last 4th one, because your brain is so dehydrated, it's so hot, it's not functioning properly. That's super dangerous. There's lots of times you hear about people getting lost in the desert and passing out, like even in the mountains in Iraq, dehydration. You can be sure that they struggled in their last hours because their brain wasn't functioning. You know, they're almost like they're struggling with this absolute brain fog. So you need to keep your heart rate down for the sake of your central governance. You can look up central governance online and spend days reading about it. But let me ask you this: on the rower, when you said you're working at 145, how did that look in the room? It must have like you were going fast, you were going slow, or you were like.
No, it was like the stroke rate was slow, like a lot slower than what you would usually row. I was rowing like 2:05 every 500 meters, so it's not that quick.
You picked a level, so you picked a level based on your experience of rowing.
Yeah.
That you knew this won't push me too high.
Yeah, so it actually worked out, because I rowed 1,000,000 meters in total, and it worked out 10K an hour, 10 hours a day. Now, if I was to jump on a rowing machine now and do 10K, I could do it in, 45 minutes, 46 minutes or something like that quite comfortably. But then I was probably doing it in like 50, 52 minutes, towards the end, maybe 53, 54 minutes. So then I was always getting off and just shaking my legs out, have that time to recover. But sticking to those heart rates was so important for me.
Yeah. What was the challenge you did?
I rowed 1,000,000 meters. That was it. I literally just sat on an indoor rowing machine for 9 days, 5 hours it took in total. But
1,000,000 meters.
Yeah, 1,000K.
That's 1,000 kilometers. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't sound that impressive when you say 1,000,000 meters, actually.
1,000,000 meters is really impressive. I had to stop and think about that. So you did 9 days. You did 1,000K in 9 days. What's that in like? What's 1,000 kilometers across the ocean from here?
Listen, I had this like idea of, hey, I'll row back to the UK or something like that, or it's not very far at all. Like, I think it's literally like Oman. It's not far at all.
Oh, brutal! So you wouldn't even save yourself.
Yeah. Okay, right. 2 more questions, and then we're going to save some because I don't want us to waffle on too much. One that leads directly from the question we've just spoke about was about hydration. Now, this was from a guy, Scott, who is triathlon training out here in Dubai, still doing a lot of cycling. I'm seeing the numbers he's putting up, 3-4 hours at a time, still doing a lot of running. And he just asked, is there any other way of anything else other than electrolytes to hydrate? Off the top of my head, I don't really think there is. I don't know, you might know something more. All I was going to put on that was that it's very easy to think that you're drinking enough water and supplementing with electrolytes. It's another thing to actually measure it and have the numbers and, what gets measured gets managed, right? And just making sure that you are getting that constant, fluid in. Apart from that, I don't really know if there's any other supplements or anything like that. Do you?
No, it's especially right here in the heat, because it can change so quick. Like you're generating more heat as you perform, and the days are often getting hotter because people start in the morning, so it can just fall off a cliff real quick. The best way I would say is to try and you got your water, you got your electrolytes, and everyone's slightly different. But if you wanted to go really scientific and survivalist, then the best way to maintain a hydrated system is to be real energy efficient in your body, in the sense that you'll have to kind of lose, you can't be rocking 100 kilo muscles, trying to go for a run or a cycle. You can't be rocking 100 kilo excess body weight. You got to slim down. You got to get as light as possible on your feet so that you're not generating heat. And then you've got to try and stay cool when you're running, keeping your head cool, whether you do running with shade, like an actual hoodie shade, or reflective. I don't know if this exists, but there's not much more you can put into your system other than water and salt, but you can prepare your system to maintain the hydration as long as possible. That will be, if you were saying, listen, we're going to do the Death Valley run, I need to be hydrated, and you're straight out of one of the bodybuilding gyms, I'd be like, nah, you're not doing it. It's not going to work unless you're dragging a trailer of water with you, because you're just going to use up so much heat. You're going to use up so much fluid with all this extra wasted tissue. Same if you're really overweight.
It's interesting. I've done quite a few runs over the summer just because obviously I'm here, and I don't actually mind the process of running in the heat. I don't mind it so much. I slow everything down, work more efficiently, but it's just the knock-on effect that has for the rest of my day. I'm just so tired, lethargic for the rest of the day. I'm like, it's not worth it. It's not worth feeling that tired and ruining your day.
Yeah, and that's the dehydration that's just rolling over into your brain fog. That's just brain. That's how you feel in your brain. Going for those long runs. I used to do it last time. I'm not doing anything this year, but last year, coming out of the summer, I was running marathons and having other stuff in the diary. So we used to go, when you spend all day on the couch on a weekend because it's too hot to do anything, what I used to love doing was getting up so early, going for a long run, and then just guilt-free lying on the couch as I'm recovering. I'm like, I've done 15, 20K this morning. I'm doing nothing for the day. That's me.
Yeah. All right. Last one then. This came from your side. So it's definitely one for you. Can flat feet cause injuries in other body parts?
So it can, but it's not to say that just because you have flat feet and then you have a knee pain or a back pain or hip pain, that it's because of your flat feet, because you're assuming that everything else is great. So flat feet can cause. See, it's in the real world, it's impossible to say this caused this in any biomechanics or in any anatomical structure. So you would look at the prevalence of an injury and then relate it to the amount of people with that injury who have flat feet, and then you kind of create a correlation. When it gets over a certain level, you can say that these two are closely linked. To say that it causes it is a maybe, but then to also say the fact that maybe you've got a weak core, maybe you sit all day at the desk, maybe you've got weakness in your quads, maybe you've got really stiff mobile joints, as well as your flat feet. You can't disclude them. So you can't just focus on, I can never run, therefore I can never exercise because I got flat feet, and flat feet causes knee pain. Well, so does weak glutes, weak core, bad posture. So don't focus on the flat feet. let's just get you going. Let's just get you moving. Let's get you exercising, and let's see what we need to fix, because the chain is not going to be perfect, whether you have flat feet or whether you have perfect arches. You know, you're going to get knee pain no matter what. So the answer, yes, it can, because your biomechanics, if you wanted to be purely mechanical about it, the sole of the foot drops down, the arch of the foot drops down. That's going to internally rotate the tibia. And then you're going to get internal rotation of the femur, and you're going to get stretches in your glutes, potentially anterior tilt of your pelvis, and then lower back will curve. You could baffle somebody with so much biomechanical, if this, then this chat. But you're forgetting about all the other contributing factors, and the idea that even if you have flat feet, you can work with it. You may not be a sprinter or a plyometric champion, but there's loads. Get on the rower, get on the bike, lose weight that way. Maybe join a circuit class, just ask the coach for something different instead of the impact stuff. If the thing gives you pain when you do it, whether it's a squat or a jump, whatever, don't necessarily jump to the back of your mind and go, that's because I got flat feet. It's not always that binary. It can be many different reasons. It's a thing. That person has flat feet the same way I have really long bones because I'm tall. Right? Tall people get back pain. So do short people. You know, it's not a useful thing to say I have flat feet, therefore I get knee pain. It's possible, but there's no way of telling.
Yeah, it almost needs that reverse engineering of, once someone has an injury, can we reverse engineer it back to flat feet, and not because of someone's previous, training experience or a potential old knee injury, or even just general lifestyle stuff as well.
Yeah. There could be loads of stuff, but when you have that one thing in your mind, and this is what happens when people are giving labels for conditions that they get when they're a kid. They form their reality with all these rules of the real world, and one of them is you've got flat feet, therefore you will be something that is not as healthy or as productive or as amazing as everybody who doesn't have flat feet. So you hold on to this in the back of your mind. It's the same with, like, you've got bow-legged, you've got somebody's got an extra vertebrae in their back, or someone's got a dehydrated disc. Okay, like, you can't hold on to that label. You need to just let that go and get after it, because everybody's got something. There's no perfect posture. Everyone's got an issue. I saw a great video, I don't know where it was online, and it showed 5 different elite sports people run. It showed, if you ever compare Cristiano Ronaldo run to Usain Bolt to, I think it's Haile Gabriel Selassie, there's 2 more. Anyway, take those 3, YouTube them, look at their running styles. They're outrageous.
Yeah.
They're all different, and they're all the top of their categories, So who's to say that there's one way of doing anything?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Just last point, it's interesting that you brought that up. Like, Usain Bolt was obviously the mechanics that he has in terms of, like, long femur, taller. He wasn't supposed to win 100 meters and be the most dominant. It was supposed to be the shorter, more stocky, more powerful guy, wasn't it? Like Asifa Powell and, Morris Green, that type of style. And then Usain Bolt came in and just completely transformed what it was to be a sprinter.
Yeah, and they think that you can take a kid, measure them up as a child, and then say, oh, you're going to be a good gymnast, or you're going to be a good swimmer. There is certain characteristics that they share, but it's not the only route to get to the top, So yeah, I would say flat feet can, but what's the use in knowing that? Go exercise, because so can poor diet, lack of exercise can cause pain in parts of your body. Too much exercise can cause pain in the parts of your body. The wrong exercise can cause pain in the parts of your body. Like, we can do the list forever. Just get exercising, find what you like, and just crack on and enjoy it. Don't let the flat feet hold you back.
I think that's a great way to end the podcast. So we've got more questions, mate. So I'm going to have to bring you back on. Perhaps we can do the next one in person. Now you're not stuck in Ireland and you're back in Dubai.
Yeah.
Before we go, obviously you've got your 2 companies. Do you want to where can people find them?
Yeah. So the Physical Training Company on Instagram, and the physicaltrainingcompany.ie is the website if you want to get in touch with me to actually do some training together. And then got a host of online education, not just by me, but by people from all over the world, at A Life of Education. And then my Instagram is Keitho_strength_rehab on Instagram as well. So anywhere there, if you just remember one of them, they're all long names, but I'll the message will filter back to me.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll tag them in the show notes and people can get hold of you, and then you'll be back on soon.
Beautiful. Cheers, bud. Thank you very much.